one man's trash is another man's treasure, but the trash that you have in your own trash can is somebody else's treasure also.
Hey, hi. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, founder and podcast producer at Max Podcasting. And you can email me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 220. And today's guest is Thomas Dambo. Thomas is an artist who specializes in turning trash into beautiful art. He uses recycled materials and is most well known for his incredible series of giant trolls, which are taking the world by storm. Literally, these are giant, massive, fascinatingly cool trolls that can be seen in so many different countries and continents around the world. And it's all from dumpster diving. In this episode, we talk how Thomas creates these trolls, which literally feel like they're from another planet or from an entirely different time, and how to find beauty in trash, Thomas's background as a rapper as well as a beatboxer, and some super cool trolls and super cool things to do that you might not have heard of in his home country of Denmark. It is Dambo. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Thomas Dambo, who I asked several times how to pronounce your last name, your artist name, and it's so straightforward. I'm embarrassed to even ask. So, Thomas, thank you so much. I'll call you the evil genius or polite genius behind trolls and so much cool recycled art and sculptures. Thomas, thanks for joining. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. I'm here in Copenhagen in my studio, and it's 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, a little. You're in the future from my standpoint, so hope good things are coming this way. But no, I appreciate you making time and staying up late over there. But really excited to dive into your creations and kind of your creative process, everything from the artist background. Before that, before you even started creating visual art and sculptures, I know that you have a background in beatboxing and rapping. Where did this passion for beatboxing and rapping come from?
One of the first things I remember recording was that we recorded Bloodsport with Van Damme, with Jean-Claude Van Damme. This movie called Bloodsport is like a ultimate fighter type of themed movie where Van Damme, he's like in Hong Kong or somewhere in Asia, and then he's fighting. And then I had gotten my hands on a stereo VHS cassette player that had a like a aux audio put in so that you could record the audio separate from the video. So I had bought it to be able to copy the VHS tapes back then, which was something that was really hard to get your hands on. So you had to rent the movies or record them directly off like stream TV. But we then dubbed it, me and my friend, so that we changed the whole audio, and so we were saying like "Ka-chang, bah!" and we were doing all the fight scenes and stuff. So I think that was one of the first things we recorded, and then later I just think we were just, like my friend's big brother had been in New York and had brought home the Public Enemy Apocalypse 91 vinyl record, and that was really cool. And nobody else in like our group of nobody else we knew were listening to hip hop. It wasn't a thing at that point, but it became a thing for us, and we got picked at in school for wearing big jeans and stuff like that. But we thought it was really cool, and then I think at some point we figured out we should also be rappers. So we started beatboxing and later started recording and later started performing, and had 10 years being a rapper. Made 7 albums.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So I knew you were talented as far as rapping and beatboxing. I didn't know that you made sound effects for Jean-Claude Van Damme movies as well.
I totally forgot about it also until you asked me. But it was funny. We also ended up dubbing the original, the first Warcraft game. My friend, he was like a little bit of a tech genius. I think we must have been maybe 14 or like young teenagers, you know. So we were playing this on LAN. We could connect two computers, and then he would like connect two computers. We could play against each other, and it was just super, super cool. And then he figured out that there was a folder with all the wave files for all the characters in that Warcraft, World of Warcraft game, like an old game like that. And then, so then we did new sounds for all the different characters. And like, I remember like there was a submarine. And so I made the sound effects with my head in a bucket of water, making the sound for the submarine of the captain or something like that, you know. So yeah, just playing around and being creative, you know, that's what it's about for me.
It's a good way to live. I think you could have a whole separate career as the sound effects person in movies. You ever seen those clips like that of people that watch stuff and try to make the sound to come through crisper? I'm not sure the name of it. I'll look it up after. Sound
Yeah, yeah,
technician,
yeah, I know
maybe.
exactly
Yeah,
what you mean. And they're sitting like with some Tupperware and trying to sound like a horse, and then they're slapping some bacon around.
yeah, exactly. That's like Monty Python with the horse with the. So pretty early on, you let your creativity flourish from the audio standpoint. What about from the visual sense? So like, what would you say was the first ever, like large scale art project that you did of, or demonstration that people were like, wow, what's this guy doing?
So it was actually from pretty early on that we started. We came into this whole thing, hip hop and skate culture. So from really early point, I was like doing like stencils with my favorite Danish hip hop band and the Wu-Tang Clan and Public Enemy, and so I was doing like stencils and T-shirts and stuff like that all the way from when I was probably like 12 or 13 or something like that. And then that like slowly progressed into becoming like big paste ups and becoming like graffiti pieces and things like that. But like I had a friend who was like extremely good at drawing, so I think that in some way like discouraged me a little bit from drawing. So I was always trying to search out like alternative ways of expressing myself. So try to win by creativity rather than like perfection in the drawing. Because my friend, he was so good, you know, he was that whiz kid between all of the friends who could just draw anything, right? And I had ADHD back then, so I was also like really, really impatient. So I think I never really learned to be good at anything like before I got older. But some of the first things I remember was like, yeah, some big graffiti things and really, really big paste ups, and also did some really big paste ups where I did like, you know, when you take a piece of paper and fold it and cut it. But then I had made a key for these big because I had seen some movie. I watched so many movies back then. I had seen some movie that like the villain or maybe somebody in Alcatraz or something like that. So, and then they're taking a candlelight, and then they had made a key. So I managed to make like a candlelight copy of like some special key for having these big commercial posters in these big light boxes that you had in the city where I grew up called Odense. So then I would go and raid all those posters and take them and then paint them or like cut them or make change them into something else. So that those were probably some like so graffiti and paste ups. That was like the first type of things that I would do.
So from graffiti to trolls, and I think trolls are kind of, I mean, they're literally a big part of folklore. I think no matter where you are in the world, and so many of us grow up with knowing about trolls. Now there's obviously, it's commercialized. There's like the Trolls movie and franchise and those toys and everything in the trolls world. But can you help level set us here? Can you explain the significance of trolls in the country of Denmark and growing up there?
Yep. So I think any culture in the world has different types of mythical creatures and religious figures and different like phenomenons or myth that a country or culture will have to use to explain the what is can be hard to understand or the unexplained, right? So I think that in the United States, maybe we call it like Sasquatch or Bigfoot or something like that. And many places in Asia they have the dragons, and so all over the world you have like different creatures. Like a lot of these comes from like the religions that were before like the mainstream religions that we have today. In Denmark, you actually say that the trolls they all migrated to the mountains and forests of Norway and Sweden, which is the two Scandinavian countries like that are much bigger than Denmark are, but are right next to Denmark. But they have like the more like the Alaska part of the United States or something like that. So they're really big, but still there's not that many people living. So you say that the Danish trolls they left Denmark, which is like a smaller and higher population density type of country, and then they migrated up to the wilderness of Norway and Sweden when Christianity came in and built the churches with all the church bells, because the trolls they didn't like the sound of the church bells, so that's why they migrated away. So I think trolls was a big part of Danish like the religion and the tales that were before Christianity, and because of that, a lot of those stories they still live on today, and there would be a lot of books and a lot of like I wouldn't really read too many books as a child because I weren't too good at reading, but I would listen to a lot of like cassette tapes, and some of the cassette tapes would be about trolls or about like the Valhalla and Nordic mythology and some of all the stories that are connected to that. And so that's what the trolls are, and the trolls can be like good creatures and they can be bad creatures. And the way that I use them in my art now is that they are kind of like the story or like the voice of nature, so that they can, if you're good to the trolls they'll be good to you, but if you're bad to them they might blow your house over.
On that note, definitely want to be good to them. I didn't know that trolls had so much history of migration as well. It makes sense. I know it's part of the culture of Norway and Sweden as well, but I had no idea that that's they migrated and that's they migrated. So appreciate the background there. When did you know that you wanted to do such a big art project that focused on trolls?
The troll project now is that because I had a like since I was doing like my experiments with street art, probably back in like the around the millennium, the Y2K, what is it you call it, like the millennium.
Throwback, yeah.
I was also doing a lot of other projects that I think in some like, because I was doing all my hip hop concerts, hundreds of hip hop concerts, where I also did all the scenography and where I learned to have an audience and how to test. I like how to have this in the morning. I could write a song and then I could bring it on stage and perform it at night. And I could like choose like, oh, today I wanna wear this weird clothes that I could put on, or I wanted to do like some funky scenography. I wanted to bring a porta potty on stage, or like do stuff weird. I would do a lot of weird stuff, right? So then that got really like, it was really nice to play around with the ideas, and I learned that like that I could make my own story and I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I learned to have success, and that I could actually live from just from ideas and that came out of my brain and things that I could do with my voice and my hands. Then at some point it started to become a little bit boring being a rapper, because I'd done it for such a long time, and we had like reached like maybe like the second top shelf of like Danish what like entertainment music entertainment industry. So we had played all the stages. We just needed to play like the last three big stages in Denmark. We hadn't played those, otherwise we had played everything. And we had the big hit with the 5 million views on YouTube and all that stuff. And so it was kind of like that the next step was like to become that really big band and then play the long, like the 20-year plan for how to be a band for the rest of your life, and I didn't have the patience for that. And we also had warned a lot of each other after doing it for 7 years or something like that, and was just tired of working at night and in the weekends and not being able to work in the daytime. but then I decided to kind of like try to do something with what I had always known, which was to build things in wood, which my father had always taught me, and I had half a year of education as a carpenter, and I'd always loved to dumpster dive, and I was also doing a lot of my rap songs would be about dumpster diving. So you would probably maybe like if you would look back at it, maybe you would put it in this nerdcore type of category, if you know what I mean. So it was like a super hardcore gangster rap track that sounded super hard gangster, but it was about dumpster diving.
But super hardcore and super nerdy.
Yeah, but I wouldn't dress up as a nerd. So I was probably a nerd, but I would sound like 50 Cent and look a little bit like 50 Cent when I was on stage. Then I started, and I remember I was like, I don't want to be a rapper anymore. I want to go back and then try and build something. I want to build recycled things like I had also done in my like in the end of my or like in my street art years. I then transitioned into doing these big projects with birdhouses and did thousands of birdhouses. I became like this street art guy where like this street art person that does paints an arrow, and then there's the street art person that does the stencil, and the person that does so the medium also becomes the tag or like the voice. And so my medium was the birdhouse, and I was like the birdhouse guy in Denmark. And remember my friends would be like, Thomas, aren't you tired of being the birdhouse guy? And I was like, yeah, but before I was the beatbox guy, and before there was the rap guy, and now I'm the birdhouse guy. That's great. And in the second I'm probably going to be something else. So but then when I did all the birdhouse projects, I understood that I could build things of recycled wood because I could get recycled wood all over the place. But I needed to I built all my birdhouses, I painted them, and I made it of plywood. And the aesthetic of them was that they needed to be like really clean and then painted, so like a clean piece of plywood with no holes and no cracks in it, and I painted them like blue and yellow and like in different like clear colors. And then I started doing sculptures that were like really big and also made in plywood and also painted and really clean, and like the aesthetic of them was really clean. And I did scenography for the other bands that we knew and for TV, and I got a TV show about recycling, and I did all different stuff like that. And but I noticed like a fault in, like, if you can say, like the design of my career, or like the product that I was making as an artist in making these clean things. The fault, because I was a recycle guy from the, maybe we didn't speak too much about it now, but I've always been a recycle guy. I've always been building everything with dumpster dive stuff ever since I was like 5 years old or something. I've been dumpster diving and being crazy with that. So I noticed that it was actually a bad design because I needed to have paint. Paint was really hard to dumpster dive. And plywood boards with no holes in them in really big pieces was really hard to find also in the dumpsters. But what I would always find in the dumpsters was small, broken, crappy pieces of fence and old pallets, and like so smaller fragments of wood, if you can say it like that, that I could always find. And I had learned through the years with my hip hop, and through the years with doing birdhouses and workshops with birdhouses, where I would go out, do 200 birdhouses in an afternoon with a lot of children at a school or something, and then hang them up in that area. And I would do that many, many, many times. So I learned that people wanted to help me and participate in these big creative projects that I was doing, especially because my projects had like a positive impact, and it was we're educating about creating room for other species in the cities, and being resourceful, and recycling, and being smart about our materials and not being wasteful. So those were like some of the thoughts that I had in the back of my mind when I was like, maybe I could combine these things into like a big scale sculpture. And then what could that sculpture look like? And I started doing experiments like that, and then that led to the aesthetic of the trolls, and then slowly that progressed into becoming the troll, because it was a smart design. And I think that, like, if you break like an artist career apart, right, you have to become good at your craft. So if you think about like something like singing, it's extremely cheap to practice singing. Anybody can practice singing, they can do it all the time. Practice doing like a gigantic sculpture, if you think about it, it requires a lot of tools. It requires like heaps of expensive material. Think about the artist that creates like reflective sculptures in bronze or something like that. That is such an expensive process. So if you're like in kindergarten, how in any way would you ever start practicing that craft, you know? But practicing building something of trash, you can start practicing that like right now, because everybody they have trash, and you can go out and find some of your trash and then start practicing building from that. So I had learned through all the projects that I had done, I had learned the importance of being able to actually practice what you want to be good at. Like because, like when I was making street art, I wanted to paint a canvas, and then to buy a canvas would be $20, and then I would be afraid of breaking the white canvas because the canvas was so expensive. But if you work with trash, then you have something that's already broken, so you're not afraid of broken what's broken already. So those were like the thoughts behind it, and then I started practicing doing big sculptures in recycled wood like that, and how I could get like an aesthetic, and how I could fit it into like something that had a meaning for me. The trolls had meaning for me. I've always loved to hike and explore nature, and I've always like loved doing these projects together with other people, traveling. I've always like loved storytelling, like in all the songs that I wrote throughout my life, and it's just like a combination of those things that became the project of my of my trolls. Where I'm now gonna go the day after tomorrow to the airport, and then I'm gonna fly to the most secret location yet, where I'm gonna build my troll number 100.
Wow, congrats on that. You don't have to reveal anything here. You could tell me offline. I'm going to tell everybody. No, I'm just kidding. No, no, we'll keep it top secret. But congrats. That's so cool. I appreciate you sharing. There's so many fascinating pieces from your background that kind of have shaped together, quite literally into building these giant trolls. And first of all, I'm just gonna crown you the world champion dumpster diver of the world, because I think you're the most creative dumpster diver in history, which is awesome. But super resourceful and super great, obviously, for the environment, and a strong mission that people can get behind. And when you look at pictures and videos of your creations, I think one of the first thing that strikes you is just how big these are. I mean, these are massive, and they're so cool, and somehow oddly lifelike, and have a lot of personality that you give these trolls. With the size there, what's the difference between creating a sculpture that is such a big size like this as opposed to something smaller or handheld?
So I have actually not made too many small sculptures. I think it's this probably a little bit of the same thing I spoke about earlier. That when I was a kid, like I was not the one that were good at sitting and fiddling with one little small drawing. I would more be like, let's make a treetop house, like let's climb up in a tree, and like let's build a skateboard ramp with like some big shovels that we take out in the forest. Like I would be more that type of have that type of energy. So I think that if you build something really really big, then it's like the big picture that matters, and you maybe you forgive a little bit more, that maybe there's not so super many small details, because the size itself has like a significance. And also because my sculptures are made of so many really really small pieces of wood, it also gives it an aesthetic where you feel like the detail. For example, like I have what I call fur on my sculptures, which is kind of like a little bit of like a shingle roof or something like that, that's just made with pallet wood, and it gives it like a high feeling of detail, even though it's maybe not, the detail is not worked that much into it. But I like really big things. It makes us feel small, and I think that my trolls being the like the voice of nature, as I say, it's like you should be a little bit intimidated by nature, because like if you piss off nature, then it's just gonna drown you or blow you over or set you on fire or.
It's very powerful, and these trolls are very powerful. I have not seen one in person yet, but I really want to, because I've chills just seeing the pictures and thinking about it, and they're so cool. I'm actually from Ohio originally. You've done some work in Ohio, right?
Yeah, yeah, we were in Dayton, Ohio, 1 year, like a little more than 1 year ago.
Awesome, very cool.
And I think we actually have a project in New Jersey also. Like, so right now we are cooking on the 12 stop east to west coast United States tour, 3 months of this summer now and half in 6 months, where we're gonna do 12 sculptures. Like, so one will be finished like every 10 days or something like that. So I'll probably have like two teams that will like kind of like collaborate on traveling across the country, and then doing that is something I always wanted to do. So I yeah, so maybe we'll come by New Jersey then. I hope so.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, if I can throw a name in the ring, Hoboken, New Jersey, just do it. It's a beautiful view of the New York City skyline across. I think the trolls might enjoy it there. But how long? So you mentioned different crews and kind of going on tour for this, which is all. You have a very, very cool life. I think you've created an awesome life for yourself and your teams. And how long does it take? The process from start to finish to actually create a full size troll.
So, for example, the process now for the road trip tour, it has already begun. Like we have a couple of clients that's reached out to me, and so we've been signing a contract with them. Then we just did a post on my social media saying that, like, we're doing the road trip thing. It's my dream to do it. Like, so we would like to have some more stops. Like, so if somebody like has a good home and like and can raise the funds and also get the permit to do it, then we would like to speak to you. So then now I'm gonna go to the United States now in 5 weeks here in the middle of February, and then I'll be on a little tour where I'm then going to go around and then see the different sites for the people we're signing contracts with. Then I'll probably be there for like 2 days or something at the different sites, where I'm then going to conceptualize the idea. So then maybe the client will tell me like, oh, there's a like you can build it within this forest, or you can build it in this or this or this location, or they'll have something to say where I can build it. And then I'll come up with a concept of like, here in this location, you're telling me there's like a gigantic, for example, there could be a gigantic fallen redwood tree. And then I'll be like, oh, cool. Would we be able to cut a hole into the tree and then hide a diamond, and that the troll is protecting the diamond and it's guarding it outside? Or so then I would try and come up with a concept that would fit into that specific location. Maybe the owner of that piece of land or that park, or whoever my partner in the project would be, maybe they would also be like, or I would always ask them the question like, so do you have something you're throwing out? Do you have something you just pruned? Do you have something that just fell in a storm? Like, do you have something that you don't need? Like, unless I ask, like, do you have a excavator you don't need? Because would like to do a troll wrestling an excavator. So I always ask, like, do you have stones? Do you have like, what do you have that is like something you don't really need for anything anymore because it's worn out? And then these things will then inspire me to what it will become. And then I'm gonna sketch a little bit on it, or my illustrator in my studio will help me sketch further on it. Basically, I myself can just go with no sketch and then build it, and that's what I like to do the most. But clients tend to want to have a visual representation of what it is we're building. But when we come on site and build it, everything always changes because we build it into the site. Because then if we are building a troll that's guarding a diamond inside a hole cut into a fallen redwood tree on a hill, like, it takes so much planning to build something in my studio and move it there for that to fit into this natural living environment. So what we do is, then when we then come back from the site visit, we then build the face and the feet and the hands, maybe only the fingers. We build those parts in my studio. So then me and my team will build that in my studio. And then those pieces we will then bring to where we are then building the sculpture. So that means that in like one 40-foot container, we can fit like all the pieces for maybe 6, 7, 8 big size sculptures, because we built the arms and the leg and the big body with the giant belly and all that we will build on site. But the face it's harder, it takes more training, it's nicer to build it indoor in a more controlled environment, and same goes for the other more articulated parts of the body, as the feet and the hands and the fingers.
It's almost like putting a giant troll puzzle together. There's so many different pieces of it, and makes sense that some it's easier to do there and some easier to do at the studio.
We are building it with screw guns, So I start with like drawing up some kind of a stick figure, and then I make the stick figure arms like thicker, and I'll take it a little bit apart and move it again, and slowly I'll like move it into the position that feels right, and then we'll then start bulking it up and cladding it and giving it hair and whatever it is it needs.
Does it ever change? Does the final troll and any accessories ever change as you start building it and realize, oh, maybe we try something this out here?
Yeah, that happens all the time. I think that's what's fun about being an artist. It is that you can change things. You make up the rules. So I think that's really important for keeping it fresh and keeping it inspiring. That like I there's nothing more I hate than having a like when I cook, I also don't use a recipe. Like if you have to follow the recipe every day, it becomes so boring. You need to have like your flex to be able to freestyle, and that's, I think, often that's where the good things, that's where innovation comes, right? It comes in like those moments like there's no more eggs. What are we gonna do? Let's use I don't know, whatever. Like, let's use the rotten tomatoes instead. Maybe they also have yeast in them, or like, and then something funny comes. So, and that's one of the other things that I really enjoy about working with trash and dumpster diving is that I cannot make a plan from me back in Denmark for what I'm gonna find in the mountainside of Korea, or like I know that I can probably find some pallets, and I can tell them my partner there that I need some wood, but there's gonna be some unknowns that my creativity is gonna spin into something, and it often becomes the best part of the project.
Wondering what I thought the best part of this interview with Thomas was? You can find out by signing up to the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. That's at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. Each week you'll hear behind the scene tales, my favorite part, and some good times from the Wild Business Growth podcast that you won't get anywhere else. And you'll also learn plenty of podcasting tips. You'll even get how to edit in Audacity, the free ebook I created, when you sign up. So sign up at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. That is the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. Now let's recycle trash to the Dambo, as Thomas says. Oh, God. Let's find out how Thomas is so creative, and those trolls just turn out troll-nominal. So that segues absolutely perfectly. This next segment is totally about creativity and inspiration. So it's as if you designed this interview yourself. I appreciate it. But you mentioned that there's almost like when you're doing the site visit, there's almost it feels like there's a real spontaneous and creative aspect to it when you're talking about looking for fallen trees or excavators or just things that stand out and are a bit out of the ordinary, and probably most people have overlooked or said, oh, something went wrong here. But you look at that as an opportunity to create a really, really cool sculpture. So that part I think is very inspiring in itself. But what is it when you are doing these site visits that clicks in your head of, that's it. That's where we should create this troll?
I think it's like what stands out, what is unique, what feels like it holds like a story, like something happened here or something's about to happen there, or there's some opportunity that I can see that if I flip that upside down, or I build something across that pond, or like. And then also I'll try to think of myself as like, if I was a 20 feet big troll, what would I do if I came walking through here? Or like, how, if I were 50 feet tall and could lift a truck, how would I then I would look at this house in a different way. This house wouldn't be an obstacle. It would just be more like a paper box I could just step on when I was leaving to the other side, or like trying to put myself in that in if I had that size and those powers. And often I'll take photos of myself like doing those things. So of course I can't leap across a house, but then I would maybe find a tree trunk that I could then that would have the right scale for as my sculpture would have to a house, as I would have to a tree trunk, or as my sculpture would have to a bicycle. And then I would maybe say, okay, so a human bicycle would have the same scale to a troll as a pine cone would have to me. And then so I always like scale it out, like, because everything I do is the scale, because like the humans are like the puppets for the trolls. So I always think about how, like, that the scale from the humans to the trolls. I think that's what makes it fun. And
How do you train yourself to have that view? Like, if you're thinking as humans as puppet size, and you're thinking from the troll perspective, how do you train yourself to view everything as such a bigger thing?
just build 107 years. It's pretty good training, you know.
I think so.
That's what I've been doing. And then I think, like, also I've been really good at numbers my whole life. So I wasn't super good with like with writing and reading when I was a child, but I was really good with numbers and really good at like scaling things up. So like, if you use 5 a day in 7 weeks, how many do you use in 5 years if you're three people or something like that? I could like, but you know what I mean. Like, some people, they like, if you practice it, then you become good at it, and then you can like get a feeling of like, then it would be like this big, or yeah. And we say that the trolls are like 1 to 5 to 1 to 10 compared to humans.
The ratio, yeah, yeah. We should have had a troll on hand for this interview. Ask a troll some questions, some big questions. Clearly, you're a very, very creative person, and your creative works are. It's like creativity on creativity, because so much goes into it. The act of creating these trolls, and everything from dumpster diving to sketching to actually building the final product. What do you do to stay creative and kind of keep your mind in that, give your mind the ability to come up with these wild ideas and creations like this?
I don't really do anything specific. I think, like, my whole life I've just had a lot of different hobbies, and I've been blessed enough from a really early age, learn that I could actually live from my hobby. And for a long time, like, I felt like I wasn't good at anything because I was doing so many different things, because I was like doing the music videos and the social media, and I was doing the album cover, and I was doing the rapping and the human beatboxing, and I was doing the sculptures and the graffiti. I was doing so many things, and I felt like I was the worst at all of it. But then, like, at some point, like in the end of my 20s, it kind of like flipped a little bit until like I know how to do everything. So I think it taught me how to teach myself to do anything. And then once you understand that, then your creativity becomes pretty free, because you're not limited to like, oh, what can I do with copper, or which country song can I sing? Then you're just like, this calls for a country song with a copper cover. And then like, I just figure out how to do it, or who I can involve in the project to help me do it. So I think that's how I've kept busy, and I've learned to be super productive all the time. I've always liked that, because for me it's the gratification of seeing my idea come to life. So I don't really do a lot of mock-ups or concept sketches or something like that. Everything I do is a product. So if I have some idea I want to try out, then I'll make it as a final. My test will be a final. So I won't do like 8 songs that I won't release. I'm gonna release all of them.
Use the term productive. I think there's an efficiency there as well, as when you're not wasting things. I think people really grasp onto that as well, as people appreciate that if you're prolific in putting stuff out, even if some takes more time than others, and some might not quite be as polished as other things you create. I think people love and are really inspired by being able to produce and put things out like that. So I love that, and I think it reminds me of your interest in having so many hobbies and interests, and as you said, you used to believe that you were stretched so thin. You're like, what am I good at? It reminds me of what they say. I mean, I remember back when I was taking classes in business school and learning about entrepreneurship, is innovation and inventing and coming up with new ideas, a lot of it is exposing yourself to so many different ideas and fusing different existing ideas together, fusing different things together. And I think that's where some great inventions have come from, or where many great inventions have come from. And I think from your art, it's derived from a fusion of, so many different hobbies and passions from your background, and putting that together and letting your creativity flourish. So it's like this perfect mix that creates the most perfect cool trolls ever. So I have chills. You're getting me pumped up. I want to create trolls myself.
You should try. But I think it's also like to not being afraid of failing. Like I think like this world we're living in right now, it's kind of like everything has to be perfect, and it's just I don't know. Actually, I think maybe a lot of people probably getting worse and worse because they're like we're not really creating it ourselves anymore, but just looks like everybody's perfect, but everybody's just so many things are just fake. So I think there's something. It's really great to dare to fail, and it's good to fail. That's when you also learn something. So I don't have to build the perfect sculpture every time. That's boring for me. Like I would like to be able to do it, but the process of making something that's perfect every time would be boring because that would require that I would have to keep going back and back and back and back and redo and redo and redo, and I would much rather like do the next one and the next one and the next one because for me it's funny to do the next one, right? We're all different like that, and we all find our way that like the way that fits perfectly to our mind and how we grow up and how we are triggered as humans, and that's what works for me.
So let's get to the next one. The next one being, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Yep.
All right, let's get wild. What is, and we don't need to reveal all of it because I do want people to check out your Instagram, check out your website, and see the amazing, just prolific trolls that you have. But what is one that pops in your head? It's just a very memorable troll creation that you've worked on in recent years.
We just did like I had a concept. It's the troll with the world's longest tail, and it's like a 400 feet long tail that we did in a workshop with a lot of different people, and it came together really good because it was like I always do workshops, but in this one, but it's hard to do workshops where people participate in crawling high up on the scaffold and help building the troll like tree storage up. So I thought if I do a troll with a super long tail that is like laying on the ground, and then it's showing the way from the parking lot, the playground area, and then through like this little forest onto the other side to where the troll is, then everybody can help working on the tail. So I had like a horde of people taking pallets apart and cladding this super long tail. So that was really really fun. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that I will get to beat the record again someday.
and you live to tell the tale of the tale.
Yep.
Before all of this, you obviously you had a very successful rap slash hip hop career. What was the name of your rap group, in case anybody wants to look it up?
So I had first I had a band with my brother that was called Een Elsk. So that means like one love. And then after that, I had another band with a bunch of my friends and my brother, and we still have that one, but we're just not super active. But it's called Flair Flower. It means like multiple colors.
Oh, very cool. Okay, I'll make sure to link it in the show notes in the blog post. But so that was a little teaser. That the main thing I was wondering about with your interest in hip hop growing up. I mean, you mentioned Public Enemy, you mentioned some of the Wu-Tang Clan and some of these other groups there. Who would be your dream rapper to perform on stage alongside with, all time?
Oh, all time. Oh, that's. I think I have to say right now, like I feel like that we're living in the time of maybe the best rapper that ever lived. That's a little bit how I see it. It's a guy that's probably haven't reached his peak yet. He's called Harry Mack. It's the best freestyle rapper that ever lived. He's probably like on 2.5 subscribers on YouTube now. He's a freaking lyrical genius, and I think it's really interesting for me now. I'm 43. It's interesting for me to have been a part of this culture my whole life. I've been touring, playing like 150 freestyle concerts with a rap crew in Norway when I was human beatboxing, and I thought that freestyle was so amazing back then. And then just be able to see how he can do it, like Harry Mack can do it. I think he's from California or Oregon or something like that. But he can just make all my heroes from that age just seems like they're standing completely still. He's just so good. I think that's really nice to see somebody come in and take the old tradition of proper rapping and then just elevate it, but have really have have pride in the real rap as well. Especially in this time where there's also a lot of rap that's been going on the last 10 years, where that maybe wasn't so, in my opinion, maybe wasn't so much about lyricism and technique.
Absolutely. That's high praise, and I know you know your stuff, so I got to check him out. Harry Mack. It's a memorable name as well. Who's your favorite professional skateboarder of all time?
So I have I have had three professional skateboard friends in my life. So it is there's Morten Ingmark, and then Flex, and then Terje. Do I have to pick one? I think nobody knows any
No, no,
of them, but those
you.
my friends are.
Okay, very cool. So you're in good company there. Yeah, we'll give it to you. A three-way tie. Those are some fun friends to have. Last one. I know you're living in Copenhagen now, and my friend Spencer and I visited Copenhagen a few years back and absolutely loved it. It
Who
was
did you say? Somebody I know or?
no, no, no. It's I don't think you know, but his family does actually his family does have Danish roots though. His name is Spencer Christensen, and so there's a lot of Christensens I know. But we visited just on vacation a few years back and absolutely loved it. I mean, Copenhagen was our favorite place that we visited, in such a really really cool city. This is a little twist because I'm not going to ask you about Copenhagen. What is an area, a town or a city or just a part of Denmark that doesn't get as much attention as Copenhagen, but anybody from around the world should visit because it's a really cool place to check out?
It's you should go to what is called Den Gamle By in Aarhus, which is the second biggest city in Denmark, and it is a city that super simplified. It's a city that's laid out as a snake, where you walk through time. So you start walking on a street, and then it starts back in like I'm not sure, but maybe in year 500 or something like that. And then there'll be a super old blacksmith. Then there'll be a bakery from the 1700, and it's an actual building that is preserved and moved to the street of this building, or of this. And then you can walk into the bakery, and then there'll be like two bakers that'll be dressed up in actual clothes from that era making bread. And then you can go, like, so then they'll have the cars and the bus stops and the record shop, and they'll have everything. And it's like a probably like maybe a mile long or something like that, with different, and there'll be some castles and stuff, but like multiple shops and restaurants and cafes and different things. But everything in this, kind of like, you can maybe say that it's like LARPing, a little bit LARPing going on, like live role play things. So like people is reenacting what happened in those times, but because you're not in one time, you're like actually walking through, time traveling through history. So like, if, like, for example, I can then see, oh, now we are on the time where it's like they have the same bus stops and they have the same street signs as when I grew up, and now they have the same paving stones and the same sewer cap, and like, so it's like really really well done, and there's no theater to it. It's real things, so like if it's a house from that era, it'll be built with tools from that era, with techniques from that era, and or if possible, it'll be preserved and moved from somewhere in Denmark where it was turned down, and then it'll be rebuilt in that. So Den Gamle By, it means the old city. It's in Aarhus in Denmark, Aarhus.
Perfect. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it because you have it nailed. But that sounds so cool. I've never heard of anything like that. You hear about different, and this is common in the U.S. I'm sure it's common in many countries as well. But parts of different states that are kind of people do dress up and kind of like act like it's the olden times. But I've never heard of something that is like progressive, has multiple times like that, and you can literally walk through it and see it. And I want to see what the bus stops were like when I was growing up. That's good nostalgia there. So, okay, cool. It's on the bucket list now. Well, Thomas, thank you so much. This has been incredible. Just really appreciate all you do, and especially making time tonight for you, and sharing all that goes into your flourishing creativity and these amazing trolls and beyond. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing the story. And I know that your website is thomasdambo.com. You're on Instagram, Thomas Dambo. What other way is there for people to connect with you online or learn more about your work?
Well, also, thank you so much, Max, for having me. I'm not doing a lot of podcasts. I think it's really nice. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do that. It's been a pleasure. You're correct on all my handles on the social medias, but I have one thing. You can find it on my website, thomasdambo.com/trollmap, or also just trollmap.com. It's like a map that I have created. It's like a GPS treasure map for finding my trolls, with a really low resolution of or low resolution of street names and like that. So it makes it hard to find them. But for me, it's not about just finding it. It's about getting lost in nature and asking other people where it is. And so if people want to have like that experience, then they can use my troll map to find all of my first 99 trolls, soon to be 100.
Perfect. Well, my pleasure. This has been absolutely fantastic speaking with you and learning from you. And I have played with this troll map, and it is just it's breathtaking, and it's a fantastic way to lose 3 hours, because you just kind of get lost in there, and you're like, wow, this stuff is the fact that you built an interactive map, and it kind of like represents where these creations are in the real world, I think just adds another level to it, and makes you want to explore and visit them in different places, maybe Maine or potentially New Jersey. But so thank you for putting in the extra effort to add that interactivity to it. Last thing, final thoughts. It could be just some final words of advice, or a quote, or a story about a troll, whatever you want. Send us home here.
What I'm the most happy about in my life, it is everything comes from what basically I found my whole career in a trash can, because of my whole career is fueled by trash. We're now 24 people working full time in my studio and my farm here, that we're renovating with recycled materials and trash that we're scavenging all over the place. And this is only possible if people think twice before they empty their trash can. So think about that. One man's trash is another man's treasure, but the trash that you have in your own trash can is somebody else's treasure also. So it goes both ways. So everybody, please share your trash with somebody who might need it, because you don't want to throw a flush at dream out the landfill.
What a cool story, a cool dude, and a cool mission. Thank you so much, Thomas, for sharing your terrific troll story. Just throw a little alliteration in there, which is tough to say. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite app, and tell a friend about the podcast. And then go to trollmap.com with them. Seriously, it is awesome. You will get lost and found in the troll world. You can also find us on Good Pods, where there are fantastic podcast recommendations. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at maxpodcasting.com and sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. You won't regret it. And if you do regret it, just let me know, and I will make it so you don't regret it. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!